Every week.
We'll
Yeah.
appointment, we think.
Are you
Take a
kidding?
hat and, you know.
Is that a yes?
Happy Halloween.
You too.
What are you dressing up as tonight?
This isn't scary
That's
enough.
it? That's it? Yeah. This is about as bold as I'm gonna get. Although Metellus, I'm gonna dress as a young Don Brown.
I got back to you.
Did you like that?
Thank you for asking how to say his name, by the way. I heard that.
Oh, yeah. Did you heard what he said?
No, what do you say?
Oh, you didn't hear what he
Told you,
said?
old man.
Oh, yeah, I heard that. Yeah, my son said, hey, you're an old son of a gun last night.
And I said, now he got himself benched.
Yeah.
And he said, that's okay. You
I
just-
know I'm old. Yeah, I do know I'm old. So he's in the clear. He keeps playing like he's playing. He doesn't have to worry about being benched. That's for sure. He's doing good, so.
So for real, you wake up every day thinking about Penn State since last year.
I swear, I mean, I said it, and I do. Though some people get driven by, positives. Some get driven by the negatives. Thing that drives me is when I don't give players the best possible chance, I want to make sure I remind myself of that. So, because that's all you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure you give your players the best chance. And I didn't feel like I did that, so I own it, but at the same time, you got to move on and you learn from it. And I think that's what happens in 41 years, you're going to win some battles, some you're not going to win, but at the end of the day, you got to get better and keep improving.
What did you learn?
Make sure you have all the tools in your toolbox at your disposal. Don't say, we're good without that, so. You guys don't care what it was, it's just,
I was going to ask you what it was. What tool were
I
you?
can't really talk about it, so, because I use it, so, but it's an important piece for sure.
How much of a balance goes into that with an age of the team and overloading a toolbox or making sure that you have, how much of a balance is that you're working with?
Well,
last year?
yeah, and I think the one thing that happens, is you don't give your guys enough credit sometimes, I don't think I can put that in because they won't be able to handle it. Well, that group was pretty smart. And now they're really smart. So, it is what it is, and it's part of coaching, How much is too much? Like Coach Harbaugh says to me all the time, hey, more is more. So, when you got all your answers and you're able to go to those, and you can't predict it. Some games are like, I mentioned the Michigan State game. Well, you go in with a plan for third down, and 3 plays in the third down, you're like, throw that in the trash and move on. In some games, you're able to kind of execute, at a high level based on the things that you're going in with. But the reality is you got to be able to adjust and move and groove, and it is what it is.
Player said you showed them Penn State trying to score at the end of the game last season. You showed it to him once, I think. Quiddy said last week.
Mhm.
What did you hope to get from that?
Well, I just wanted them to see it, It's not a good feeling, and we're all personally accountable for it. And, you take the good with the bad, but you got to learn from it. And, just wanted them to see it. Wanted them to be reminded of that feeling. I think the point was made.
Don, you've got a few guys from Florida, the Miami area, who are not only really good players, but seem to bring a lot of intensity and edge. Is there anything to that, kind of where those guys are from?
I never really looked at it that way, but maybe, you got the Ooch man, he certainly has some juice. The Flanagan trio, D. Bush, D. Gill, and Josh, those guys. But I think all players from all over the country have juice. those are the kinds of players that obviously Coach likes to surround himself with. So I think that's part of the reason is, you know, that piece right there. Regardless of really what sector you're from, it's getting guys that love the game of football. You can't come here and play football here and not love football because it's too much part of your DNA. This isn't, you know, Happy Jack City. You know, this is, you better like football, you know, and you better like the things that go into it, the meetings, the walkthroughs, the intensity on the practice field, you know, me up your behind sometimes, you know, all those things count. So, you know, you better like the game of football and all that goes into it, or this is probably not a good place for you to come.
How do you identify that in players?
Oh, you can, you know, and sometimes a direct question is, do you love football? Some guys give you that look and, oh, yeah, coach. And some guys, you can tell they're ready to. Like, if you ask Ben Mason that question, what do you think might happen?
Might punch you or something.
Yeah, he might swing, you know. You know, I can remember him sitting in my linebacker room, and I asked him, right, Ben? Yes, coach! You're good, buddy. So, you know, you can kind of tell, you know, but there's ways, you know, when you're trying to build a relationship with a guy that you can tell if if football's important to him.
You can't have a cerebral approach to football, you think?
Oh, you better have a cerebral approach. You know, I was just looking at, you know, our third down stuff over the last 5 weeks. Well, you know, we repeated a bunch of stuff on third down, like I said, against Michigan State 2 weeks ago, but you go back beyond that, Northwestern, Nebraska, you know, just going back in, there's somewhere about 65 different concepts that we've challenged, you know, opposing offenses with. So you better have a cerebral approach, and you better know your stuff. Because you're not getting on the field if you don't know your stuff, obviously.
One of the pieces is Rashan. How close do you think he is to getting back?
We'll see. You know, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm feeling good about him. You know, we'll see where he's at. You know, I'm not the doctor, so, you know, I'm just a guy coaching. So we'll see, though. I think he's very, very close.
Back to the toolbox analogy, you've always, when you first got here, you threw a lot of the guys, you made sure they had a lot to work with, and do you feel like this is as large a
Yes,
that you've had right now?
no question. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff at our disposal, front-wise, coverage-wise. You know, I think we've done a good job building our, you know, I wouldn't say new coverages, but little intricacies within the coverage that, you know, can help handle different scenarios that come up from offensive coaches and offenses that you're dealing with. So we feel pretty good about that. And you know, you got a lot of good coaches in the Big Ten for sure. So they challenge you every week.
Would this be the biggest in your career, would you say, or just here? In terms of the breadth of what you guys can do?
No, this is pretty close. I would say, you know, this is close. But I think we've done a good job, you know, providing the players what I call, you know, compartmentalizing it. So like, all right, you know, we have 4 major concepts in coverage. It's going to fit in one of those 4 concepts, and then you can be really multiple up front, and vice versa, you know. So, yeah, I think we're about, you know, I think we're, you know, you're almost at the point. Here's one of the crazy issues of coaching, right? You have a day. So today we'll practice for 2 hours. Well, there's only so much you can do within that 2-hour period, so if, I have a rule, if you don't practice it, you can't run it. Because what's your chances of effectively executing it if all we do is talk about it in the meeting room? You know, your chances are slim and none. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So if we can't get it practiced in that block of time, then we can't run it on Saturday. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I roll.
I think you said in the spring about Shea Patterson, you were excited to see what he'd be like against other teams. What have you seen of Shea?
Guy's a warrior. You know, I think he's, I'm trying to think of when it was. It was in the third quarter. I don't know if I told you this, but in the third quarter of the Michigan State game, is that when did we fumble in the third quarter? He came up and got in my face. Said, "You get me the ball back and I'll fix it. I promise you I'll fix it." I said, "You got it." And he took care of his business. He made good on it. So I kind of like guys like that, you know, that'll fight you in the alley, you know. So that, if you ask me the thing that stuck out to me the most, that's probably the thing that stuck out to me the most about the guy in our first, I don't know, what did we play, 8 games? So he's a competitive guy. And he's, he's accountable too, so that's a good thing.
We often hear a lot about Trace McSorley when it comes to Penn State's offense, but
Boy, he's good.
like,
He's a really good player. James said some good things about him. I heard it, I don't know where, maybe it was ESPN, I forget. But he's everything that, he means everything to them. So I think he's a highly competitive guy. He has a really solid understanding. They do a lot of freeze cadence, so you'll see him look over, changing plays and doing those things. So he has a really good handle of what he's supposed to do and getting his guys in the right places and taking it into his own hands when it's important. So, we certainly have a formidable challenge looking us right down the face on Saturday for sure.
who are some of those other guys?
For one or two more.
Who are some of those other guys that are on Penn State's offense that are, present a challenge?
I like the receiver, number 1, Hamler, I forget, Katie, but number 1. And I think the tailback's a really good player. With Jasicki leaving, a tight end, I thought they'd have a hard time replacing him. And the youngster from Freemuth from Massachusetts, funny, has done a good job as a youngster coming in there, and he's very similar to him. So, those guys are all solid. 84, the big, tall receiver, I like him. It seems like he might be a hair nicked up. He only played 10 snaps last week, but I'm sure he'll be ready for us. So, those are the guys. But the 24, Sanders, he's a really good player. I know numbers relate better in numbers than names, but he's a really good back. He's got over 800 yards rushing, so, at this time of the year, that's a significant amount of rushing yards.
When you see 94 yards and 0 for 12 on third down, what do you think when you see the box score?
Well, you relieve for another week, it's just relief for another week. Share something with you. That didn't surprise me. This team, this defensive football team that we're coaching presently, is the best practice team I've ever been around. I don't have to go out there with my hair on fire, screaming at guys, you got to hustle, you got to run, get to the ball, blah, blah, blah. There's none of that going on. This team practices like you're supposed to practice. And it starts, and at the end of the day, you just go, holy moly, did these guys fly today? And it's been, they do it this way. They build days upon days upon days upon days of it. and you don't even realize it, but we practice full speed every day, you know, and it's impressive, because some teams, you know, you gotta chase them to practice the right way, and you're living in their grill. This group, you just let them go. They know how important it is to play fast. See, here's what happens late in the year. If you allow your practice habits to wane, and you're going, you know, maybe they don't have to tag off. Maybe they don't have to shimmy and bend their knees and tag and get in great posture so they're prepared to make the tackle. What happens to your tackling is it goes like this. Now, all of a sudden, you're not making plays. It has nothing to do with the scheme, because everybody's worried about their scheme. It's because you've let off the gas and haven't demanded, you know, the necessary techniques and fundamentals for the preparation of tackling. It's not like you got to smash everybody. You won't have any guys left. But they can run, and they can get in great posture to tackle. And this group is excellent at that.
How much does the time of possession help? I mean,
Oh.
the offense is,
I mean, there was a couple points against Michigan State. I'm sitting with the guys, and Bush is here and Cleek's here, and I'm like, dude, that's 5 minutes off the clock. And it was, you know, I mean, that's huge when you can go out there and just, you know, sell your soul to get off the field, and you're rewarded by, you know, the offense just dominating the clock. I mean, that's a big deal. You know, don't have to score, but field position and, you know, giving you the rest so you can be 100 miles an hour. That's a big deal. You know, I did this study last year on us, and when we are below 70 snaps in that 60s, we're pretty good now. When we get into the high 70s, low 80s, that's when trouble starts, you know, because that's when fatigue's done. Concept is all out there, and, you know, it's a bad deal.
that was last year's team though, right?
Yeah, I
You
did a
think
study.
this team would have that kind of issue with
I don't
70
know.
plus?
We haven't been there very often, so
Right.
pretty happy about, I mean, in the last whatever games, 7 games, we're somewhere high 40s to mid 60s. Which is a heck of a deal. I think if you asked a couple Big 12 defensive coordinators, they'd take it tomorrow. So,
You sure you want to leave?
no, I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Happy Halloween.
Thanks, you too.